Go. All right, we are very honored to be joined with Rabbi Dr. Warren Goldstein, the Chief Rabbi of South Africa and the youngest Chief Rabbi to ever assume that position. It's always a joy to speak to Rabbi Goldstein, but today we're on a more somber and serious topic. So first of all, welcome. Thank you, Rabbi Goldstein.
Thank you so much. So lovely to be with you and your viewers.
Thank you. So we've seen over the past few weeks a wave of anti-Semitism that is unprecedented in many ways. And I guess one of the most important questions rabbis have is, how do we tend to our communities? How do we stand for our people? How are we there for people? And I think the question takes a special form in this generation, where a great deal of the attacks on Jews, especially on young Jews, are on social media and spaces that rabbis do not usually fill. It's often on TikTok, Instagram. A lot of attacks are on young people. I saw 6 out of 10 young Jews are attacked on social media. So what's the role of rabbis in this age where hate is so out of control, and also where it's in places that you wouldn't necessarily see?
I think the most important thing for rabbis, for everybody, are the facts, and to be in full command of the facts, because we're living in a time, and it is part of the way societies interact, where very often people feel passionately about their views and they seek to intimidate people who disagree with them. And especially when it comes to this issue of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, the opponents of Israel seek to intimidate. They seek to intimidate by casting around labels and using tactics which often blur the facts. So what I think is so important, and at the heart of all of this, is to arm ourselves with the facts. And that's where I think rabbis can play a very important role, and that is to ensure that the facts are put out there, that people have easy access to the facts, and be able to stand up and to defend. And I think this is so important. We never have to feel intimidated or afraid, because actually we have the facts on our side. And I think it's so important to be able to put the facts in the public domain and say, look, these are our views. We stand by them. We believe passionately in the justice of the cause of the state of Israel, not because of ethnic solidarity, but because we really believe in the justice of the cause of the state of Israel. And that's why the facts become such an important thing. So, for example, in the South African context, what I did was I wrote an open letter to the president of South Africa, President Cyril Ramaphosa, and I put out into the public domain. I wrote the letter very, bearing in mind that he is the president of the country. I have a relationship that goes back many years with him. We, in past, I've shared with him Torah ideas when we've met, sharing sometimes a line or two from the Talmud, and I've discussed the Israeli-Palestinian issue with him in private. But I felt on this occasion it was important to put it out in public. He'd put out a letter in public, setting out his support for the Palestinian cause. And so I responded in public. I sent him a copy of the letter first, but I responded in public. And in essence, the thrust of my letter was this. I quoted from the Gemara that says, from the Talmud, that says, one of Hashem's names, as everybody knows, is Shalom, which is peace. But also the passage in the Talmud that says, Chotamo shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu emet, that the signature value of Hashem, the royal signet of God is truth. And there's a connection between truth and peace. There can be no peace unless there is truth first. And therefore, I said to Mr. President, I'm laying out here the facts of the truth of the situation, and explained why the apartheid accusation is false, explained why giving my perspective purely on a factual basis. And I think this is so important. We have to arm ourselves with the facts, and we need to be proud of those facts and not be intimidated. And everything is about knowing those facts, sharing the facts with as many people as possible, because the truth is on our side. So let's share it. And I think one of the big challenges we find in the world today, in many parts of society, we are living in a post-rational world where there is absolutely not even a question of even looking into the facts, where there's a sense of everything is based on the system and allegations of systemic racism, and then there's no engagement with the facts at all. And Israel has all of the facts to support it. So we just need to get the facts out there and say to everybody, to our opponents, we demand the right to rational debate, not name calling, not intimidation, not fear, not threats.
Thank you. Yes, that is very, very true. And unfortunately, there's so much misinformation out there. You mentioned the accusation people level at Israel using the word apartheid. You've had a close relationship with the Mandelas, a warm relationship with the Mandelas. You live in South Africa. What do you say to those who use this obviously misused word towards Israel?
So, as you say, I was born in South Africa. My parents are born in South Africa. My grandparents are born in South Africa. So I grew up my childhood years for the first 23 years of my life. I lived under the apartheid regime, so I know what it's like firsthand. I saw it, I lived it, and experienced it. I also hold a PhD in human rights and constitutional law. So I've studied these matters both from a legal point of view, from a historical point of view, and looked at the history of the state of Israel. And I think what is so important is to emphatically reject this allegation, the apartheid allegation. It has no foundation, in fact, at whatsoever, nothing, in no connection to reality. And it's important that we all, as Jews and as human beings, learn to understand why this allegation is completely false, which I will set out in a moment. If people are looking for some of the facts and the backup on this, I've written many articles on this. Most recently, I wrote an article that was published in the Wall Street Journal, which set out the facts for why this is not apartheid, so people can have a look at that. And there's a lot of other material which I've written on this, and people can reach out to me, and I'll happily share it, because this apartheid allegation goes to the heart of the attempt to delegitimize and destroy Israel, because apartheid was a crime against humanity. And if you accuse the state of Israel, the Jewish state, of apartheid, you're in essence denying it the moral right to exist. That is why our opponents are using it so often, thinking that if you keep on repeating it, an allegation, it becomes true. It doesn't. You can repeat it as much as you wish. It has no basis in fact. Why? Let me set out the facts. It's very, very simple. To understand why it is not, one has to distinguish between what is within the borders of the state of Israel and outside of the borders of the state of Israel. Within the legal borders of the state of Israel, there is complete equality, and no one can deny that. There's complete equality between Jews, Christians, Muslims, between Arabs, people of any ethnic background, complete equality, the right to vote, the right to representation in parliament, on the judiciary, the right to access to all state facilities with no segregation and no denial of rights. No one can argue. In fact, the new Israeli government, which is in the process of being formed, the balance of power is held by an Arab-led Muslim party that is holding the balance of power. It was a Muslim judge, an Arab judge, who was the one who sentenced former President Katsav to prison. There is no way that would happen in an apartheid government at all. Everyone is represented there's complete integration in hospitals, in universities, in all of the state facilities. People can live where they wish. There's no group areas act as there was under apartheid. It has nothing. To accuse the state of Israel of being guilty of apartheid is similar to the blood libel of medieval Europe. It is exactly the same. It's a libel against the Jewish state, and there's no foundation in fact. Now, that's not the end of the story, because then one has to consider the position within the West Bank and Gaza. These are territories whose legal status has not yet been resolved. They are not within the borders of the state of Israel. They are outside of the borders of the state of Israel from a legal point of view. As everybody knows, these territories were captured by Israel in the 1967 war, and there has been attempt after attempt to resolve the status of these disputed territories. And successive Israeli governments have offered for the establishment of a Palestinian state in these territories, which has been turned down by the Palestinian and the Arab leadership time and time again. And I think this goes to the heart of it. The essence of these territories needs to be resolved through peaceful negotiations, but you can only have peaceful negotiations to resolve these territories if you have a willing partner for peace on the other side. You cannot, even the ANC under Nelson Mandela could not negotiate with the apartheid government in South Africa because they had no partner for peace on the other side. Likewise, Israel has had no partner for peace. And this is a point that one of the top Middle Eastern scholars in the world has said, Professor Bernard Lewis. He has said, this is not a conflict about the land. Were it about the land, it would have been resolved long ago, because in 1947, under the UN partition, there was an opportunity to establish a Palestinian state. It was rejected. And then in 1948, after the ceasefire, the 1948 war, the West Bank and Gaza was in Arab hands for almost 20 years until 1967. There was no establishment of a Palestinian state. Why not? Why not? Why not? And when Israel did capture those lands in a defensive war in 1967, it tried on numerous occasions, and then most recently, in the last 2 decades, it tried at the Camp David Accords hosted by President Bill Clinton. It was tried again by Prime Minister Olmert, and on numerous occasions to offer the establishment of a Palestinian state in more than 90% of that territory, with East Jerusalem as its capital, and it was rejected time and time again. And now the greatest obstacle to the establishment of a Palestinian state is the philosophy of militant Islam propagated by Hamas. In terms of its charter, it seeks the complete genocide of every Jew in the state of Israel. And I'll tell you what is a very important exercise when people want to compare the two. The ANC set out what it called the Freedom Charter. Now, you should take that document and put it side by side with the Charter of Hamas. The Freedom Charter of the ANC, which was its manifesto for the liberation of South Africa from apartheid, begins with the statement, South Africa belongs to all who live in it, black and white together. That was always the vision. We are all human beings. We transcend race. We see the unity of humanity, a non-racial South Africa. The Charter of Hamas is the genocide and the annihilation of every Jew in Israel. And so the greatest thing that the international community can do at this point to further peace is to ensure that this murderous ideology, which is propagated by Hamas, does not receive international support. And so therefore, in sum, to accuse Israel of apartheid is completely without fact. It's a defamation of the Jewish state. And I'll tell you what it really is, and this is what I find so offensive about it, and that is it is a desecration of the sacred memory of the victims of the real apartheid. Because in essence, by accusing Israel of apartheid, those who do so are desecrating the memory of those who suffered under the real apartheid, because you're saying it's one and the same thing when they actually have no correlation whatsoever. And here is the real bitter irony. In terms of the internationally accepted, the international Holocaust definition of anti-Semitism. There's an international standard definition of what is accepted as anti-Semitism, one of which is to accuse the state of Israel or the essence and the foundation of the state of Israel based on racism. And so what is remarkable is this: to accuse Israel of apartheid is anti-Semitic. It is racist, it's bigotry. So now, how is this for a bitter irony? You take the sacred memory of the victims of the real apartheid, and you use their memory to perpetrate another form of bigotry. Can there be any greater desecration of their memory than that? And I think as Jews and as human beings, we have to stand together and say, we will not tolerate the use of the word apartheid in this context. It's a lie, it's a libel, it's a blood libel against the Jewish people, and it's a desecration of the sacred memory of the victims of the real apartheid.
Very powerful words. Thank you. Yes, there's so much to unpack there. And you mentioned the facts, and clearly you're armed with the facts. Yet at the same time, there are so many young Jews on social media that are feeling overwhelmed, that are feeling attacked. I've received a bunch of messages just for, speaking out for Israel. What do you say to young people? What do Jewish leaders do to make sure that our members don't feel exhausted, overwhelmed, outnumbered, and attacked during this time? What chizuk can we offer during these times?
Apart from the facts, which I think are so important, people need to be armed with the facts so that they can put out these arguments. I think that there's also about inspiring all of us, and it's everybody, and particularly those who feel that they're on the front lines in terms of the battles on social media which are taking place. It is important to understand our vision and our mission as Am Yisrael, as the Jewish people. We come from a proud tradition. We come from generations and generations. We were given a mission at Har Sinai, at Mount Sinai. We need to carry that sense of divine mission with pride and with dignity. And also, I think we need to realize that we have many friends and allies in the world. It's very important not to feel beleaguered and alone, because sure, there are haters. That is for certain. But the good people far outnumber the haters. The good people and the allies. And I see it in the South African context. So often I hear people saying, well, South Africa is anti-Israel. It's not true. The ruling party in South Africa, the ANC, is anti-Israel. And I believe that they are making a terrible, terrible mistake. And I've told the president in private and in public, and I've told the ANC in private and in public, and I don't hold back on that, because I believe passionately in the truth and speaking the truth to whomever. But I'll tell you this in the context of South Africa. There are millions and millions of South Africans who support Israel. There are millions, there are big churches in South Africa who are very passionate and proud supporters of the land of Israel, of the Jewish people's right to the land of Israel. And so we have many, many friends in South Africa who support Israel. And I think this applies right across the United States, and it applies in many places in the world. We have allies out there, because people understand that the struggle that Israel is going through is a struggle on behalf of the forces of freedom in the world. Israel is a bastion of freedom in the Middle East. It is the only free democracy in the Middle East. It is the safest place in the Middle East for Jews, but also for Christians and for moderate Muslims to live and to worship. It is a beacon of light, of freedom, and of human dignity in a world where that is under assault. And I think what is so important is to realize there are millions of people out there right across the world who understand that and who are allies of the state of Israel and of the Jewish people in the struggle. And they understand that we're on the front lines of it, and that in the sense the Jewish people have always been the canary in the mine shaft, where the sense, that famous analogy that when the miners would go down the mine shaft and they wanted to know if there were poisonous gases in the mine shaft, they took down the canary bird in a cage down the mine shaft, and if the bird was alive, they knew that the atmosphere was healthy and that they could survive. When the bird died, that was a sign that there were poisonous, toxic gases, and that they needed something needed to be done as a matter of urgency. The Jewish people are that canary in the mine shaft. When people start attacking us, that is a sign that there are toxic gases in human civilization, and something needs to get done in order to protect not just the Jewish people, but to protect humanity. And many people in the world understand that. They understand that, for example, when Jews came into the crosshairs of Nazi Germany, that wasn't just bad for the Jews, that was bad for the world. That was a sign that there were toxic gases in the world that was seeking the destruction of the world. People understand that. That's why Israel has many allies around. But we must never lose our hope and our vision and our prayers for peace. And it's important to reach out with peace and a sense of brotherhood. There's a real tragedy, as Yishmael and Yitzchak are brothers. And they became estranged from one another. And there's a beautiful midrash that at Abraham's funeral, they hold hands and they are reconciled. And to my mind, I keep that vision in my mind. I think that there is hope because with the Chaviv Adam Shenivra B'Tselem, beloved is the human being created in God's image, there is a real sense of the greatness of the human spirit that can overcome hatred and prejudice. And particularly in this conflict, which is a conflict of brothers, we need to find a way out of it. And we need to reach out to good people on all sides of this so that we can build those relationships and those alliances. We can never become pessimistic, cynical, isolated. We need to reach out. There are a lot of good people in the world. And my message to all of the students who are reaching out to you, my message to them would be, let's arm ourselves with the facts, know that we have justice. The justice of the cause of the state of Israel is on our side, and know that there are many good people, and let's reach out and build friendships and build alliances with people who appreciate freedom and human dignity and the brotherhood and sisterhood of all human beings, and the ultimate ideal of peace for our world.
Thank you. I think one thing that changed and comes to mind when speaking about the support out there is that in this round of fighting in Gaza, I actually saw more support for Israel in countries like Syria, Lebanon, Egypt, of course, the Abraham Accords and the Gulf support. It's just, I think that's been an incredible and positive aspect of this. I know you're pressed on time, so one more question that is uniquely American, and unfortunate, it hurts me to ask this question. We have, I think in America more than other Jewish communities, there are many Jews who will take the side of, the anti-Zionist side, which is fine as long as it's political, but it often is painful to see when those Jews team up, not only in siding with people who are vandalizing synagogues and attacking the Jewish community, but also very much attacking other Jews that they disagree with. Do we respond to them? Do we have enough enemies on the outside? What are your thoughts on this uniquely American phenomenon?
Look, it's not only an American phenomenon. It is a global issue. I really believe in the importance of persuasion, of facts, of truth, of rational argument. And I think that in life, I've generally found that on any issue, you're going to have three groups of people. You're going to have those who passionately agree with you, and you're going to have those who passionately disagree with you, and then you're going to have a lot of people in the middle who haven't made up their minds yet. And I think what's very important is, firstly, to give support to those who passionately agree with you. And so it's so important, as you've been saying, to reach out and make sure that those Jews who are proud of Israel, who are proud Zionists, have the information, have the support, have everything at their disposal to continue to be proud Zionists. It also means that it means putting out the arguments in a rational, strong way to as many people as possible, because I think there are many fair-minded people who are open to persuasion, both Jewish and not. Anyone who's open for a rational discussion, I say engage with them, persuade, share the arguments. That is the only way. And then to accept that there will be people who are not based in the rational, and that there are people who are approaching things from a very emotional point of view, who will not be open to persuasion, and to not feel the need that one has to win over every single last person. We need to make sure that we are persuading the undecided, and that we are supporting those who are proud Zionists, and ensuring that they are empowered with the facts. That's what we need to do. And then we need to build alliances with as many people as possible across different religions, across different countries. There's a great and grand global alliance of good people who believe in freedom and human dignity, that are there waiting to support, and already are supporters. So I think the most important thing ultimately is to be optimistic and to be proud. We cannot be beleaguered, and we cannot become cynical and pessimistic. We need to be proud, we need to be optimistic, and we need to be confident in our views, and to be constantly rooted in the facts, and rooted in truth, and rooted in the vision that Hashem gave us His Torah, and that we carry His mission, and that is a unique privilege in the world, and we should feel a sense of gratitude for that, and to do everything that we can to attach ourselves to our ancient Torah values, because those values will give us the spiritual, intellectual, emotional, communal support that we need in order to go forward into the future with confidence.
Rabbi Dr. Warren Goldstein, thank you so much. I thank you for taking from your busy schedule and for sharing these words of inspiration. And I very much look forward to sharing them with others. Thank you.
Thank you so much.